Thank you, Dr. Sharma, for that introduction to this entire concept about why we are gathered here today, and also to introduce to us the people from different walks of life, different aspects of life, who've congregated here for one single purpose. And I would like to congratulate the ICSI for taking up the initiative of talking about Buddhism, about living Buddhism, and living Buddhism through the leadership that is required. And while we're talking about this, and I do see amongst the panelists as well as the audience, people who are following Buddhism, its tenets, and the spiritual aspect of that, I'm sure you would be wondering, what is Department of Commerce doing here in the middle of all of this? And the reason why we are here is also because trade has an important aspect of reaching out to other shores, other countries. And through trade, we have seen during the history, there is a spread of culture, religions have spread across the world because of trade. And that is where it is in this very small aspect that we come into, about the trade aspect and the tourism aspect, as Dr. Sharma mentioned in his introduction. That is where we step in. Now, just to have an idea about the countries, there are the countries which have substantial Buddhist population. Correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand, there are about 500 million followers of Buddhism worldwide, and nearly 50% of them live in one country, that is China. And the largest Buddhist populations outside China are Thailand, Japan, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Cambodia, South Korea, India, and Malaysia. So as we see that the concentration of Buddhist followers are in this part of the world, and obviously there is an advantage that India has, and India is the cradle of Buddhism, and Buddhism today is the fourth largest religion of the world and has, as I mentioned, about 500 million active followers. India definitely has that unique advantage and a very distinct advantage, as most of the original and historic sites which are associated with the life and the teaching of Lord Buddha, no other nation in the world possesses that. So, barring Lumbini, which is the birthplace of Lord Buddha, which lies in Nepal, 7 of the 8 main Buddhist pilgrim sites are located in India, with most of them falling in 3 states, two states, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. And of course, there are the 4 major sites of Lumbini, Bodh Gaya, Sarnath, and Kushinagar constitute what we popularly call as the Buddhist circuit in the tourism jargon. There are, of course, other related sites which fall in Sikkim, in Himachal Pradesh, in Jammu Kashmir, in Arunachal Pradesh, in Odisha, and in Madhya Pradesh. The list goes on. As I understand, in 2002, Mahabodhi Temple in Bodh Gaya became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in that. So out of the 35 or 36 World Heritage Sites, this is one of them and has a place of distinction. Now, given the unique advantage that India has, we have to appreciate the fact that what Mecca is for Muslims, what Vatican City is for Christians, what the Char Dhams are for Hindus, the Golden Temple for the Sikhs, the Buddhist circuit or the Buddhist zone that we have is for the Buddhist population across the world. Now, this Buddhist circuit or zone is not only sacred to the Buddhist followers worldwide, but also which attracts the non-Buddhist tourists as well, interested in historical heritage and Buddhist teachings. And for more than 1,000 years, the Indian Hindu-Buddhist influences have been a major factor that has brought about a certain level of cultural unity to various countries of East Asia. So Buddhism has been therefore one of the very strong bonding factors in Asia, and that needs to be rewoven in the modern context. So for that reason, Buddhist tourism can be that game changer, that as a significant game changer in our approach to the neighboring countries, to the countries where Buddhism population is substantial. It can be that new connection, which is actually very old, but rediscovering and strengthening that in modern times. Now, if we look at the figures, and here again nothing spiritual about it, it is complete, what the figures are. So currently, India's share of outbound tourism, even from some of the Buddhist countries, is very low. It has been seen that not only that, even the international tourist arrivals in India, the foreign tourist arrivals, which are about 8.03 million, only about 5% of them travel to Buddhist sites. So Asian countries like Korea and Japan and Southeast Asian nations such as Indonesia and Thailand, instead, they receive a major chunk of Buddhist tourists. And there are countries which have developed artificial Buddhist sites, replicating the original sites for enhancing spiritual experience. But India has had those original sites, and we have lagged behind. We have lagged far behind. The single largest factor identified for the poor response of the foreign tourist arrivals in the Buddhist circuit has been A, poor connectivity, B, the quality of infrastructure, which leaves much to be desired, the hygiene of the host towns and the poor tourist facilities. And that is why it is noteworthy that in this gathering we have not only the practitioners, but we also have the service providers who facilitate the practicing of the religion. There is, of course, a challenge which is faced. So today I represent the Government of India, I represent the Department of Commerce, and I'm speaking on behalf of Department of Commerce. But tourism is essentially a state subject. So there are issues which need to be addressed by the state governments. On part of the central government, yes, there are facilitations, there are liberalizations, there can be the investment regime which can be liberalized, and so on and so forth. But the nitty-gritties have to be worked out by the state governments. There have been many attempts in the past to promote tourism in Buddhist circuit, and in fact, however, these have been at best sporadic, and they often get subsumed under the overall tourism promotion in India. And that is why it is noteworthy that we have one full event which is there completely dedicated to Buddhism and living the Buddhist leadership. Now, as we have in the Department of Commerce been advocating for a special tourism zone, which basically talks about creating those facilities which are required and to be able to put all the things that work together to let the followers and the tourists who want to come to this part of India to appreciate the historical, the teachings and everything else. And if you recall, in this year's budget, 5 special tourism zones have been announced, and we hope that one of them is on the Buddhist tourism circuit or Buddhist tourism zone. So I look forward to the comments of Joint Secretary from the Ministry of Tourism in this regard, and what are the attempts by their ministry. But there are a few elements which we definitely need. When tourists go to the Buddhist circuit, the towns and the cities which are there, one basic constraint is about the appalling infrastructure, about the lack of good quality hotels or stay arrangements, the lack of roads, the connectivity and the works, So that is something which we definitely need to develop. Apart from that, and this is again which Department of Commerce, not just specifically for Buddhist tourism, but across the world we have been talking about, is promotion of languages and and the capacity buildings amongst our youth to be trained in those languages so that we can welcome people from across the world and make them feel comfortable. It's not just languages, it is also related to the lifestyle, the cuisine, the food that they eat, you know. So now all of this is something which we have been talking about across, you know, as a part of services trade, if I may say so. But it's very heartening to know that now this is being actually put into practice, as Dr. Sharma mentioned, about the languages, the language training, and you have special cadre of people where you are training about 60 boys and girls with respect to tourism and pilgrimage tourism, and you're also talking about training them in Japanese language. So it's a very, very welcome step. It's good to see whatever we are propounding in theory, it's actually being put into practice. I also understand that you talked about the exchange of students, which again is one medium where we move forward between countries which are like-minded. Apart from this, you know, enhancing the overall experience of anyone who's either coming to India for spirituality or as a tourist. You know. So the prayer halls, the center of learnings, and here you mentioned and you introduced us to the professors who were there from the Nalanda universities. The museum, I met someone in the audience who are specializing into museums, and that is what is the need of the hour, to have museums which take you through that journey which otherwise would have not been possible otherwise. The audio-visual shows, the center of knowledge, and so on and so forth. You know? So all of that definitely is the need of the hour. One more thing, I'm not very sure about that, but do we have the live telecast of the major services in Mahabodhi Temple? That is the main Buddhist shrine. So we do not have, I'm not very sure whether that is something which you do advocate or not, but it's just a thought of a person who's not into that, this, but that is something which came across during some of our stakeholder consultations. Then, of course, the development of special packages that you talked about, and we do need the tour operators and tour promoters to put together those packages for people to facilitate them to come to India for Buddhist tourism. Also, where the government comes into play is the visa facilitation. Since one of the sites, Lumbini is the birthplace of Lord Buddha, and it's a few kilometers inside Nepal. Now, perhaps, I mean, this is just a thought, maybe we can have an arrangement with the government of Nepal so that Lumbini could be included in the circuit by reducing the procedures at the national borders and developed it as a part of the macro planning of the circuit. So these are some thoughts that we've had in the Department of Commerce, and some of my thoughts as well. So I hope that we do have, and I do look forward to a very constructive engagement and discussions. And I would welcome if you have an idea, or if you think that this is what needs to be done for us to move to the next level as far as welcoming Buddhist tourists from across the world and within India is concerned. I would welcome if you can share that with me or with Dr. Sharma. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.